Good morning. It is time to rise and shine. My name is Haylee Jacob, and I'm your host for the Rise and Shine podcast. Hello, and welcome back to the Holy Week series. It is Tuesday, and so we are going to read passages that kind of tell us what events took place or what events we think probably took place on Tuesday. Again, it is unclear on exact days of when these events took place. This is just kind of when we think, and different people have different opinions. So some of these things maybe happened on Monday, and some people believe it happened on Tuesday. So I just want to put that reminder out that, the Bible doesn't lay out exactly. Sometimes it does say what day it is, or how many days till Passover, so we know exactly when that would be. But sometimes it's unclear, and we just think, well, maybe he took a break, and maybe this is the next day. So I'm going to read the passage from Matthew, and this is a long one. So because this is starting while Jesus was at the temple, and we talked about him being at the temple yesterday. Some people still have him at the temple on Tuesday, and he's teaching at the temple, and then goes to Mount Olive, or Mount of Olives. I'm going to start in chapter 24, where he's leaving the temple and going to the Mount of Olives. And I'm going to be skipping some of it because there is a lot of teaching in this section, a lot of parables, a lot of debating with the chief priests in this section. So I do encourage you to read this for yourself if you want to know exactly what the sermons were, the signs of the ends of times. And that goes through all through chapter 24. And then he talks about nobody knows the day and the hour in which he is coming back. And then all of 25 is parables. So this is the parables of the 10 virgins, the parable of the talents, and the parable of the sheep and the goats. So I'm going to pick up at chapter 26. When Jesus had finished all these sayings, he said to his disciples, "You know that after 2 days the Passover is coming, and the Son of Man will be delivered up to be crucified." Then the chief priests and the elders of the people gathered in the palace of the high priest, whose name was Caiaphas, and plotted together in order to arrest Jesus by stealth and kill him. But they said, "Not during the feast, lest there be an uproar among the people." Now when Jesus was at Bethany, in the house of Simon the leper, a woman came up to him with an alabaster flask of very expensive ointment, and she poured it on his head as he reclined at the table. And when the disciples saw it, they were indignant, saying, "Why this waste? For this could have been sold for a large sum and given to the poor." But Jesus, aware of this, said to them, "Why do you trouble this woman? For she has done a beautiful thing to me. For you always have the poor with you, but you will not always have me. In pouring this ointment on my body, she has done it to prepare me for burial. Truly, I say to you, wherever this gospel is proclaimed in the world, what she has done will also be told in memory of her." Then one of the 12, whose name was Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priests and said, "What will you give me if I deliver him over to you?" And they paid him 30 pieces of silver. And from that moment, he sought an opportunity to betray him. Okay, and that's where I'm going to end today's bigger passage. There's a lot that happened in this section. This day was a busy, busy day. So like I said, some of the teachings at the temple could have happened the day before, or it all could have happened on this day. We're not quite sure, but this is kind of where my notes have these things that are happening. So the disciples in the morning, they wake up and they're returning to Jerusalem, and Mark has it where on the way back to Jerusalem, this is where they see the fig tree. So they're on their way back to Jerusalem. Mark 11, 20 through 26 says, "In the morning, as they went along, they saw the fig tree withered from the roots. Peter remembered and said to Jesus, 'Rabbi, look, the fig tree you cursed has withered.' 'Have faith in God,' Jesus answered. 'I tell you the truth. If anyone says to this mountain, "Go throw yourself into the sea," and does not doubt in his heart, but believes that what he says will happen, it will be done for him.'" So again, that's the reminder of have faith and do not doubt, and ask in the name of Jesus. And if you have faith and no doubt, that will be done for you. And then it says that the debates go on. Jesus is teaching, but also debating with the Pharisees and the Sadducees. Like I said yesterday, they are really trying to trip him up. They are asking leading questions. If you look ahead from where I started, chapter 23, Jesus is kind of condemning these priests, and he's speaking these woes over them because they're asking him questions like about the resurrection. Well, what if a woman is married and her husband dies and then she remarries? Who's going to be her husband in heaven? And they're trying to ask him all these confusing questions, which, I mean, honestly, that is like a question that kind of comes through our head, but it's they were doing it to trip him up. They were doing it to catch him in something wrong. And he answered them, "You are wrong because you know neither the scriptures nor the power of God. For in the resurrection they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are like angels in heaven." And so he goes on, and then all of chapter 23 are woes to the scribes and Pharisees. So he's um really giving it to them today. He's like, okay, I'm about to be he knows it's his final week. I mean, not that he would hold back in the first place, but he's really giving it to them, and he's really trying to get it through people's heads, like who he is. So he debates with them and then goes to the Mount of Olives, and this is where he is doing a lot of teaching and a lot of those parables. Matthew 24:3 says, "As Jesus was sitting on the Mountain of Olives, the disciples came to him privately. 'Tell us,' they said, 'when will this happen, and what will be the sign of the coming age?'" So they're asking, like, how do we know? How do we know that you're coming back? How do we know when the end, when it's the end? And so Jesus is giving a lot of prophecy here. So one, he also predicts the destruction of the temple here, um, which did happen. The temple is destroyed, and also, that could be a prediction of his death and crucifixion as well. So he predicts the destruction of the temple, and then he gives us signs to look out for. And guys, I did read some of it, but go and read that chapter. That is chapter 24. Because, like I said, the goal of this is for you to look and kind of see um, what this means for you today. A lot of the things that he is talking about, I'm not trying to be all doom and gloom, but a lot of these things that he foretells in this section, we're seeing these happen today. And I'm not saying that like it's going to happen tomorrow, like, because he says nobody knows the day and the hour. But I am saying open our eyes and be on watch, because as I read this passage, I'm like, oh my goodness, a lot of these things are taking place and are taking place at a quick pace. Okay, so he teaches on the Mount of Olives, and then Jesus predicts his own death. Matthew 26, verses 1 through 5. When Jesus had finished saying all these things, he said to his disciples, "As you know, the Passover is 2 days away, and the Son of Man will be handed over to be crucified." Then the chief priests and the elders of the people assembled in the palace of the high priests, whose name was Caiaphas, and they plotted to arrest Jesus in some sly way and kill him, but not during the feast, they said, or there will be a riot among the people. So Passover is a celebration of when God passed over the Hebrews in Egypt when they put the blood of the lamb over the door. If you don't know that story, go read it. It is kind of part of the plagues that the Egyptians went through during Moses' time when Moses was trying to get Pharaoh to free the Hebrew slaves. And the Passover, that's what the Passover celebration is. It's a Jewish celebration of that, and it's a very important a holiday. Not a holiday, but a very important celebration, a very important thing to remember. And so they knew that they could not arrest Jesus during the Passover feast because people would be riotous because Jesus had followers, and to do that on such a holy day for them would be awful. So Jesus goes back to Bethany and has dinner at Simon the leper's house. Now this is kind of what I was saying. It seems like different gospels place this in different. So John has it as Mary, Martha's sister, doing this. This section in Matthew doesn't name the woman. Some people believe that it is two different women on two different instances, and I haven't done enough research on that yet to know exactly to speak on that. But if you are interested, you can do the research. You know, I think maybe it could be two different women, but again, I don't know. So, but this is where she breaks the alabaster box and pours the oil over his head. So I'll read that again because it really is a beautiful passage. While Jesus was in Bethany, in the home of a man known as Simon the leper, a woman came to him with an alabaster jar of very expensive perfume, which she poured on his head as he was reclining at the table. When the disciples saw this, they were indignant. Why this waste? They asked. This perfume could have been sold at a high price, and the money could have been given to the poor. Aware of this, Jesus said to them, "Why are you bothering this woman? She has done a beautiful thing to me. The poor you will always have with you, but you will not always have me. When she poured this perfume on my body, she did it to prepare me for burial. I tell you the truth, wherever this gospel is preached throughout the world, what she has done will also be told in memory of her." This is beautiful for so many reasons. One, the woman she knew that she had to anoint Jesus and prepare him for burial. This perfume was very, very expensive. And the people were kind of like, "Well, why don't we just sell that? Like she could have sold it and given the money to the poor. Like why is she wasting this?" And Jesus said, "No. Don't bother her. She's worshiping. One, this is her way of worship. It's a form of sacrifice. That money could have gone to something else, but she chose it to use it as worship for Jesus. This was a selfless and a beautiful thing that she did for Jesus. One. Two, like he said, it prepared him for his burial. And he reminded them of his upcoming death once again. She said, "This woman is preparing me for burial because you will always have the poor. The poor will always be there. Yes, it is good to give money to the poor and help them, but I will not always be here. And so while I'm here, she's worshiping me." And also he says, wherever this gospel is preached throughout the world. So he knew that this gospel, his gospel, these stories would be known throughout the world. Of course he did. But he said, what she has done will also be told in memory of her. He knew that as much as the gospel is spread around the world, this story and this woman will also be spread that much in memory of her because of the sacrifice, because of what she did. Which is amazing because it's true. People know who this woman is. And maybe we don't know her name because maybe it isn't the same story as Mary and Martha. But people know who this woman is when you say an alabaster box or when you say pouring the oil over Jesus, people know that story. Or most people, if you grew up in church, know that story. So that, I think, is a beautiful, beautiful thing to happen before, days before the crucifixion. And then at the end of this day, some people have this happening on Wednesday. The Bible isn't clear, especially the passage we read. It goes straight down to this next part. Judas agrees to betray Jesus. So after the woman anoints Jesus with oil, it goes straight into the next passage, and it just says, "Then one of the 12, the one called Judas Iscariot, went to the chief of priests and asked, 'What are you willing to give me if I hand him over to you?' So they counted out for him 30 silver coins. From then on, Judas watched for an opportunity to hand him over." And that's from the NIV version. I'm kind of going back and forth from the ESV to the NIV. I think it's interesting that this comes in this gospel anyway, in Matthew, right after people are like, "Why the waste of the perfume? We could have sold that and gotten money." I think it's interesting that that happened right after, because I wonder what went through Judas's head in that moment. And I think there's another gospel, I don't know off, but in my research, I feel like it said in one of the gospels, so either Mark or Luke or John, that it was Judas himself that said, why is she wasting this? And I couldn't tell you which one it is off the top of my head, but I think I remember reading that. And I think it's interesting that this happened right after, because I'm like, did he just like get mad that she wasted, like, was that a trigger for him, that he was like, "Oh, like, people are wasting this, like, we could have made money off of that. I'm going to go make my own money and find a way to kind of sell Jesus out." And I just think it's interesting. I don't have any like legit theology on that, but I just think that that's interesting that that happened right after people talk about the waste of the perfume, that he goes and he's looking for ways to make money. Yeah, I just think that that's an interesting placement of that. So that is the end of Tuesday in our Holy Week series. And I want to kind of say, as we get further into the week, more things are going to happen in each day, and I might talk a little bit less in my own opinion. So I've been kind of interjecting because I tend to get off topic and rant a little bit and get sidetracked, but I always come back. Guys. I may, it may be more reading, and I'll probably interject things, here and there, but it may be more of a, here's what happened, let's reflect on it. So again, here's our questions. Number 1, what did Jesus do today? Number 2, what does that teach you about Jesus? And number 3, why is it important, especially to you right now? And again, I think about Jesus's foretelling of the end of the signs of the end of time, and I just think that that is very, very relevant in these days. I hope you have a wonderful Tuesday and be blessed. Thank you all so much for listening, and if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and leave a review. You can also subscribe for new episodes every Monday. If you have any questions or topics you'd like me to discuss, you can send me an email at haylee.riseandshine@gmail.com. That's HAYLEE, and the word "and" is spelled out. Or you can send me a voice message on your podcast app. Simply go to the show or episode page and click on the link that says "Send in a voice message." Now, go out there and shine your light.